The Wonderful World of Darklords. Report 12. The Queen's Wood. If King Haggard's land was a desert, where the people were parched for a single drop of magic, the Queen's Wood was a flood. When I emerged from the mists, the air was dense with magical energies, to the extent that the forest seemed to warp around me. The gnarled branches of the trees appeared to be terrible, grasping arms, and the eyes of the animals glittered with a hungry and malevolent intelligence. I thought that perhaps the capital city, with its shining cliffside castle, would be different, but when I arrived, I found that the roots of the trees, and indeed the very stones of the mountains, were pushing through the paving stones even as workers attempted to cut them away. Like its abhorrent queen, the capital has a beautiful, elegant facade, but cannot hide the ravenous magical energy devouring it from within. The Lord. The ruler of the Queenswood, Narcissa, came into power through a series of events that, if coincidental, would strain credulity to the breaking point. After his first wife died in childbirth, the king fell in love with a beautiful and mysterious noblewoman. She claimed to be a distant cousin of the Delisnia line, but I found that her supposed family tree did not match up to that bloodline's, admittedly, tangled records. The king either took her claims at face value, or was so smitten with her that her lineage did not matter to him, and wed her in a scandalously short period of time. After the king's own death, Narcissa took over as regent until the young princess Snow White could inherit the throne. Snow White's mysterious disappearance in the forest was Narcissa's final stroke of unimaginable good fortune. Narcissa walks a curious line between embracing her realm's abundant magic and fearing it. Rumors persist about her use of witchcraft and alchemy to spy on her citizens, eliminate her rivals, and feed her vanity, and even a cursory examination of her castle with eldritch sight lent credence to these tales. However, she spends a tremendous amount of time and resources fortifying her castle against the encroaching forest, and whenever she has business beyond the city walls, she sends her huntsmen rather than braving the wilderness herself. A significant amount of her magical and personal energy is dedicated to hiding from the creatures that dwell in the mountains beyond. This is not Narcissa's only pursuit, however. She surrounds herself with the most beautiful young women in the kingdom, noble and commoner alike, and encourages vicious competition as they vie for her favor. Those who enter her inner circle often vanish soon after. I did not want to believe the rumors I heard about the ultimate fate of these women. Later experience, however, proved to me that all witches are cut from the same cloth. The land. While the Queenswood is home to multiple mining and lumbering villages and a handful of true cities, the vast majority of the kingdom is dominated by the Heart's Mountains and the thick forests covering them. The forests are home to all manner of fey creatures and magical beasts. One might encounter anything from bloodthirsty redcaps to territorial dryads to wolves the size of horses. The people speak of frenzied witches' sabbats that occur at the equinoxes and solstices, in which hags from all domains come to worship and make sacrifices to the evil spirits of the mountains. I admit to being relieved that my visit did not coincide with any of these bacchanals. Despite the supernatural dangers of the mountains and the forest, the common folk of the Queenswood venture there often to harvest a bounty of natural resources, for the mountains are rich in silver and gems. No one wishes to penetrate the forest too deeply, however. It seems that my experience with the grasping, looming trees was not a mere attack of nerves. Many miners have turned back after seeing their deepest fears reflected in the trees, and one logger swore to me that her brother was devoured by crocodiles, which had been floating logs a moment before, and became floating logs again afterward. There is a common saying in the Queenswood: if you bring darkness in your heart, the forest will reflect it. The inverse of this, however, is the legend that one who is pure of heart has nothing to fear from the forest, which has birthed the persistent rumor that Princess Snow White is still alive, living in the heart of the forest, and tended by blights turned gentle as summer flowers. A bard in Quedlinburg sang a poignant song about how the Harz Mountains longed to possess her forever, as she was more beautiful than all their riches, and so they transformed her into a nymph so that her purity and loveliness would never be lost. The next morning, the bard had vanished without a trace, his door hanging from a single broken hinge. Dread possibilities. I could not leave the Queenswood without investigating the rumors surrounding Narcissa. Her handmaidens and ladies-in-waiting were reluctant to share their mistress's secrets, but a few made catty remarks about how her current favorite, Greta, would not be in favor for long. It seemed like this was the way with Narcissa's favorites. I would have wondered why all of her attendants seemed to think that things would end differently for them, but one can never underestimate the power of self-delusion. Given the number of magical and mundane poisons in the castle, it was not difficult to ensure that Greta would be indisposed for a time, and Mask of Many Faces allowed me to assume her appearance. After an evening in which the entertainment consisted largely of women praising Narcissa's beauty while casting subtle aspersions on one another, the Queen dismissed them and asked Greta, me, to attend her in her personal chambers. As the Queen led me to her chamber, which was dominated by an enormous mirror, a strange and subtle transformation gripped her. She seemed to shrink with every step, her back twisting into the slightest suggestion of a hump. Her hands were less slender than bony, with faint traces of liver spots along the knuckles, and her cool green eyes began to bulge from their sockets. When I stepped back, repulsed from the creature that was half a woman and half a hag, she cackled and performed the words and gestures for a spell that should have frozen me helpless to the spot. My patron's ring went cold on my finger as the spell passed harmlessly through me, but I feigned paralysis. The witch approached me, her features twisting and aging further with each passing moment, holding a jeweled dagger. "You are fair, Greta," she leered, raising the dagger over my heart. "But with your youth and beauty, I'll be fairest in the land." I had seen enough. I released my disguise, assuming my form of dread, and unleashed an eldritch blast. The next few moments are somewhat muddled. I was conscious of no thoughts beyond destroying this monster, of causing her as much pain as she had caused the women who died helpless and terrified in this room, for no better purpose than to feed the vanity of this loathsome parasite. It was not until I felt the agony of her claws and teeth in my flesh that I realized I was outmatched, and used gaseous form to flee. I hope I scarred that haughty face. Parting thoughts. I confess that I have never been so tempted to abandon my duties and remain in a domain as I was in the Queenswood. Not because I wished to settle there, far from it, but because I would like nothing more than to see Narcissa driven into the forest that she so hates and fears, that whatever darkness she brings in her heart may consume her. However, I have a task to perform, and I will perform it. I admit that my investigation of Narcissa may have gotten somewhat out of hand. Nonetheless, you are the one who told me that I should not let my nerves interfere with my work, and that I should rely upon the powers you gave me. I did so, and I learned the fate of Narcissa's attendants, the fate that she doubtless wishes to visit upon Snow White should she ever reappear from the forest. This information could well be valuable to you, although I cannot be sure as I still do not know exactly what you wish to learn from this survey. At any rate, I did leave the Queenswood behind me, despite my desire to change the lot of its young women for the better. Holding a gold coin as a mist talisman, I reflected that the next domain on my itinerary was not likely to fill me with such hope. Every town has good moments and bad, and sometimes the good predominates for a time. But not in Nottingham. Regards, D.
Your curiosity is one of your more admirable qualities, my little servant. Be assured that, in time, you may learn of your patron's plans. For the time being, continue to treat all knowledge as valuable. A single grain of truth can reveal obfuscated details, even to one such as I, whose knowledge of these realms surpasses all others. In this case, your tenacity has revealed the source of Narcissa's power. A bargain with hags to maintain her control over the realm, no doubt. The magic she possesses to remain youthful in appearance is an old, crude ritual. Disappointing, but useful. Bargaining with the Fae is a fool's errand. Such promises are nigh impossible to break as, much like the chaotic effects of wild magic, Fae magic has the tendency to develop a life of its own. The Queenswood may be under similar influences, which would account for the illusionary horrors that manifest within. However, if this Snow White lives and is pure of heart, then perhaps it could create a sanctuary of sort for her. However, if such a person exists beyond the imaginings of the peasantry, she would be as rare as an alluring hag.
This has been The Wonderful World of Darklords. We have no affiliation with Disney or Wizards of the Coast. All music recordings used in this episode are in the public domain and were obtained through museopen.org. Titles and links are in the show notes. Dialogue for Yensid was written by Aslan Rex himself, who you can follow on Tumblr at Darklord Aslan. The Wonderful World of Darklords logo was designed by Haylight Jones. You can find links to their work in the show notes. If you'd like to support the show, look for us on patreon.com or find our tip jar on Red Circle. Thanks for listening.